Puberty. It's a word we all know, right? But what's really going on inside our bodies during that time? Well, today we're going to unpack that entire journey, explaining exactly what happens, when it happens, and all the incredible science that makes it work. Hey everyone, and welcome to MediByte. Look, puberty can feel like this giant mystery, but it's actually a completely natural and pretty amazing process. Our goal here is to just walk through it step by step so you can feel informed, confident, and really empowered by understanding your own body. So where does this whole thing even begin? Well, long before you see any changes on the outside, there's this quiet but super powerful wake-up call happening deep inside your brain. And it's all thanks to some really important chemical messengers we call hormones.
Let's just get a clear definition on the table. Puberty isn't something that just happens overnight. Think of it more like a sequence, a whole series of carefully planned changes that help your body mature, leading to adult physical features and, down the line, the ability to reproduce. It's a totally fundamental part of being human.
Okay, so these are the key players in the whole process. It all kicks off when a tiny gland in your brain, the pituitary gland, sends out two really powerful messengers. We call them luteinizing hormone, or LH, and follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. These hormones travel down to the ovaries with a very specific message. Hey, it's time to start making estrogen. And it's that estrogen that really gets the ball rolling on most of the physical changes we're about to talk about.
So once those hormonal signals are officially sent out, the body starts this incredible journey of transformation. Let's take a look at the timeline and see how one milestone kind of naturally leads to the next.
A huge question people have is, so when is this going to start for me? And the honest truth is, everyone's body is on its own unique schedule. The timing depends on a bunch of different things. Your nutrition and just your general health play a big role, and so does your body weight. But genetics, that's a huge piece of the puzzle. You'll often find that you start puberty right around the same age your mom did. So there is a super wide range of what's considered normal.
This timeline here lays out the usual sequence of events. The very first physical sign, for most people, is breast development. Sometimes people call it budding, and that can start anytime between 8 and 13 years old. A little while after that, you'll start to notice hair growing in new places, like under your arms and in the pubic area. Then comes the growth spurt. It usually peaks around age 12, and this is why you might suddenly feel like you're outgrowing all of your clothes. That same hormone, estrogen, also signals your body to change shape, adding curves by storing a bit more fat on your hips and thighs. And then finally, somewhere between 14 and 16, that super fast growth starts to slow down and eventually stops.
All right, let's dive into one of the biggest milestones on this whole journey, getting your first menstrual period. This is a really clear sign that your reproductive system is up and running.
There's a medical term for this. It's called menarche. And it doesn't just happen out of the blue. It usually shows up about 2 to 3 years after those first signs of breast development. So it's a really important part of the journey, for sure, but it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Now, if we look at the averages in the United States, the most common age to get your first period is right around 12 and a half. But please remember, an average is just that. It's a middle point. So many people start earlier and so many start later, and all of that is perfectly normal.
And this is a point I really want to drive home. Your personal timeline is completely 100% unique to you. And once your period does start, it's also completely normal for it to be a bit irregular for the first few years. It can take a little while for your body's hormones to find their rhythm.
So, once your period starts, what's actually happening inside your body every month? It is a fascinating biological process, so let's take a closer look at the science behind the menstrual cycle.
First off, let's just define what we mean by a cycle. You often hear the number 28 days, but a normal, healthy cycle can actually be anywhere from 24 to 38 days long. And the starting line is always day 1, the very first day of your period.
So the entire cycle is driven by that same team of hormones we met earlier, and you can think of it in 3 main phases. First, you've got the follicular phase. That's all about getting an egg ready. Then comes the ovulatory phase, which is kind of the main event where the egg is released. And finally, there's the luteal phase, which gets your body ready for a possible pregnancy.
This chart breaks it down perfectly. In that follicular phase, hormones help an egg mature inside this tiny little sac in the ovary called a follicle. Then, during the super short ovulatory phase, that mature egg bursts right out of the ovary. And finally, during the luteal phase, the lining of your uterus gets thick and cozy to create a welcoming environment just in case that egg gets fertilized. If pregnancy doesn't happen, that lining is shed, and that's what your period is. And then this amazing cycle just starts all over again. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here, right? From that first hormonal spark to the physical timeline and that intricate monthly cycle. So let's bring it all together and talk about the most important things to remember on your own health journey.
So, what's the bottom line here? First and most importantly, puberty is a completely normal and healthy part of growing up, and your timeline is yours and yours alone. Second, don't worry if your periods are irregular at the start. That's totally expected. Your body shape is supposed to change too. That's all part of the process. And really, understanding what's going on is the first best step to feeling empowered and taking charge of your own health. You know, true understanding always starts with curiosity. So we'll leave you with a question to think about. What new questions do you have about your own health journey now? Keep asking and just keep learning. We really hope this explainer was helpful and maybe cleared a few things up for you. For more simple, clear guides to your health, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the MediByte channel. Thanks so much for watching.